Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Rudy Show. I am your host, Rudy, and this is my show. Today, I want to talk about creativity. Just generally, how do we get creative? What are the situations in which we get our best ideas from? Because lately, I've been feeling a bit of a flow of creativity. Although, to be honest, I hit a bit of a roadblock. My PC messed up. I wanted to move it to the living room, and when I turned it on, it said there was no operating system, so I had to do this wizardry to my PC, but now it's finally working, and that was a bit of a hiccup. I lost a couple days of productivity, but I got it working now, albeit now I have a watermark. My whole PC is like a whole mess, to be honest, so hoping to get this resolved in the near future. I don't know how though, but yeah. But like I said, I've been feeling a bit of a flow of creativity. I am just thinking of ideas and kind of going with them. I'm not really trying to worry too much about the logistics of like, how do I pull this off kind of thing. I just like go for it. That's sort of what I've been doing lately. I've been writing a bit more lyrics lately that I do really want to make an EP. I want to make a small album. Because I love music and I would love to contribute to the world of music by making some music. Although my own experience when it comes to making music in the past has been I wrote lyrics for my friend's band. I've was in a thrash band when I was in high school, and I played some very rudimentary riffs. But hey, I contributed. Yeah, I think that's about it. Really, my most meaningful contributions to music is that. So making a whole EP would be a bit of a daunting task, but I have a lot of good friends who are very experienced when it comes to making music that can assist me if they so feel like it. But yeah, so music, one of the creative avenues I am sort of taking a part of, and then this YouTube business, which if you're listening on Spotify, the home of this podcast is really on YouTube at Rudy Fruity. And so yeah, I've just been having a lot more ideas for my YouTube channel, like making post-match commentary for my Tekken matches, doing some more casual account reviews for Azulane. Might do some more guides because that's what people are asking for, and it's pretty easy to make those. It's just a bit of a pain because it's not really creative fulfilling, personally. So I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do them. Whatever. It's like a job. But yeah, just before I used to like think of ideas, but then I would get caught in like how do I perfectly execute this? What do I need to prepare? And then I just never get it done, you know? And one thing I've been trying to like emulate is the kind of like is like my favorite kind of podcast to listen to. I'm trying to just emulate it. Like I'm trying to be my favorite podcast now. Cause I really enjoyed listening to podcasts about creative people doing creative things. I like to hear about their systems, their the routines, and the mindset when it comes to doing anything creative. And now my podcasts that I listen to don't really cover that sort of stuff as much as before, which is fine, I guess. Well, like the podcasts that I listen to, they have their own thing going on. And, you know, they never really set out to be that type of thing. It just so happened that that's what the podcast sort of entailed. So I'll discuss in specifics like what podcast I'm talking about, but I do want to say no shade to these podcasters, obviously, because like they're my favorite shows. I still listen to them every now and again, but I just kind of found that in the recent episodes I'm sort of missing some of the stuff they used to talk about often. Which, anyways, so one of the main podcasts I used to listen to was Late at Night with Brian Wecht. Two of them, they are creative people themselves. Leighton is a writer and game director, I believe. She has been involved with the creation of a couple indie hits in terms of gaming, so that's pretty cool. And then Brian Wecht, not only does he have a PhD, but he is also a musician and a goofy guy. He is in a band where he dresses up as a ninja and they sing about bonus. So, yeah, lots of creativity just between the two hosts in itself. But I remember when the show was just starting to come out, and maybe like within the first, 100 episodes is when I really listened to them pretty often. But they had on guests who are also creatives in their own rights. Like sometimes they had voice actors, they had D&D hosts, they had a Wiccan on there once, and different types of people of different avenues of creativity, and they would talk a lot about their work as a creative. There's just like a casual conversation, which is sort of the vibe of the podcast. Is not really they do have segments, but they're not really so much like welcome to the Late Night with Brian Wexo. They're just really casual about it. They have like a cold open sort of like they just start the episode in the middle of a conversation, and then like maybe 20 minutes in they introduce the show. So very casual, very laid back. They sort of learned their segments and flow as they just did it, which was very interesting and added a bit of like an improvisation kind of feel to it, which I really enjoyed. But like I said, though, in recent episodes, there's been, I feel like, less talk about creative processes. Although maybe I'm just not listening to the right episodes. Or maybe I'm just more impatient. I mean, I'm just like, give me the good stuff already. And it's like, really, you've only listened to like 10 minutes of the podcast, relax. But maybe they do keep up with like conversations about creativity. But yeah, when they have these guests on, it would just lead them to more conversations about creativity. What's the environment you need to get your ideas? What's the environment you need to actually do the work to put out these ideas and follow through with them? Those are the things I really enjoy listening to, because it's kind of different for a lot of different people. Sometimes it's the same, but when it's different, it's really interesting and gives you like a new idea of like, oh, maybe I should try that, because sometimes I have a bit of like a mental block when it comes to figuring out this thing. So stuff like that. Another podcast I really enjoy listening to in this sort of similar vein is the Super Mega Show, although they used to be called the Super Mega Cast. And I would say, since they rebranded as Super Mega Show, there's been less talk about their creative process. The Super Mega Boys. Love Super Mega, my favorite YouTube channel, hands down. And if I were to get either Matt or Ryan on my show, that would be incredible. That would be a dream come true. That would definitely be like a highlight. They used to talk quite a bit in detail about the videos they were working on the YouTube channel. And I feel like maybe they do that less because they used to get some comments about that. Like, oh, you're just making all these you're just making a podcast to talk about stuff you're working on and haven't come out yet. And maybe because of that, they're like, okay, we're going to talk about the less. I don't know. They haven't addressed that directly. So I'm just talking out of my ass, essentially. But I really did enjoy it when they would yap about their the like actual doing of certain projects, certain skits, certain big videos they had planned, So I hope they sort of bring that back. Lately, it's been a lot of podcasts, a lot of live streams of games. And they've talked a bit about the skits they're doing, but they haven't really spoken about specific details about those skits. So yeah, as far as I think that one thing they said is that they're kind of trying to make a backline of skits so they could actually like release them in a more of like a regular schedule rather than, just one and then 5 minutes later, another one, So yeah, hopefully that works out well for them. I am still very much looking forward to what the Funny Brothers have in store. Yeah, those are two podcasts I listen to. And in a similar vein, I also look for interviews of creative people on YouTube. And pretty much anything with Rick Rubin is something I'll listen to. Not that I think he's like a super genius or anything, but like he is just somebody who's very level-headed. He doesn't really have too much of an ego about him. Who's just very much like, I'm just going to do my thing. And it happens to work out pretty well, which is pretty cool. And I feel like, I don't know, musicians, I feel like they have an ego about them because they're musicians. And I think a lot of people may seem like they have like the right idea of how to do things, but it's a process, man, and everybody does it differently. I think that with Rick Rubin, some people might have this idea that like, oh, he's full of himself because he's a big shot producer, but he's actually pretty chill in a lot of the interviews. Actually, pretty much every single interview I've seen him be a part of. And even in his interviews, he is a bit involved in like talking to the host if he's the guest, of like, how do you get creative, or does that work with you, kind of thing. Again, a lot of his podcast stuff actually just seemed to be more like conversation rather than the show, and I think this just comes natural to him. And I just listening to how he goes about like his philosophy of creativity, how it's an idea that sort of comes to you. But like, I do kind of, I would like to pick his brain of like, how do you know? Do you just know when to take action on it, or should you just push it? Should you just go for it? I feel like that's like a bit of like a sort of a juxtaposition of like you gotta, it's not just one to have the idea, but you gotta like act on it. That's how you really make something, is how you literally make something. But it is an interesting idea that like there are just like ideas in the universe and there's like a time for it. If you haven't thought of it yet, it's just not time for it, kind of thing, which is interesting. But then there's also like, I can't really recall a time where he said this literally, but I do kind of get the sense that like, you got to put yourself in a position where these ideas can come to you. Whether that is meditation, a certain morning routine to get, other distractions out of the way. Just something to put you in your perfect mental environment to come up with good ideas. And then to also put yourself in a space where you can act on them is just a very important part of creativity. That's sort of what I pull from listening to a lot of Rick Rubin stuff. There are some people he has talked to that talk about like how there's a lot of people who, like, as soon as they come up with the idea, they need to act on it in some way, whether it's making the bridge to a song or writing down lyrics, or maybe even just jotting down the notes of the idea of what you want to talk about. You know, like, a kid scraped his knee playing on the playground. You know, write that down and just know that you'll come back to that idea later. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna make something out of this thing that happened. Stuff like that. I am still trying to get into my flow. Like I said, though, recently I've been doing a bit better. But this hiccup with the computer was a headache. Hoping everything goes well with my technology in the future. Because, oof, boy, that was... I really need to get a new PC. I have the most expensive parts, I think. My friend gave me his old graphics card, which is a GTX 1060. It's actually, it's an old one, but it's a good one. And it's being, and it's part of my Optiplex 9020. We just slapped it in there and called it a day. Yeah, it's PC stuff. I do want to get like more PC parts to kind of like go up to the level of the graphics card. So yeah, that's a near future kind of deal. In the meantime, though, I gotta make a lot of stuff. I gotta get in my bag, as one would say. And this podcast is part of that. Like this, I don't want to do this podcast because, I just want to hear myself talk. Like I want to create something out of it. Like it's an audio experience. What I say and how I say it is something that's a bit intentional. And also the guests I have, it's also something very intentional because I'm like, I think these people, either I think they have something really interesting to talk about, or they come to me and have something to talk about. And I think that's a really special thing when someone comes to me is like, hey, can you help me implement this idea that I have? Like that's really gratifying. And yeah, I the big thing for me is like I like helping people come up with the best ideas, or like just even to apply themselves into something. It's my favorite thing. I don't really enjoy it if I just do the work for them, and I do try to like equip people with the knowledge and skills to execute on something, and then watch them execute on it themselves. Like that's how I think you should teach people. Like you're not gonna teach people by just giving them the answers, or doing it for them yourself, you know, although that would make it easier. It's not the right way to do it. I went on a bit of a tangent, bringing it back to what I listen to in terms of creatives. I also listen to interviews with musicians, or sometimes watch them. But it's really hard for me to just sit down and focus on one thing. Like, I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I think I need to be on some sort of pill because I need some constant stimulation going on all the time. Like even when I go for like a walk, I have a hard time just being in the moment sometimes. And sometimes I just like, I need a podcast, or I need a new album. Like it can't be my favorite album. It has to be something new to stimulate my brain. Fresh ideas. I'm like, that's really interesting. But if I listen to the same thing over and over again, I get really bored. Anyways, musicians, interviews. I've been listening to quite a few Charlie XCX interviews, especially since after hearing her new album, Brat, which is an outstanding album. I can't rave about that album enough. It is so multifaceted. It makes a complete like cyclical nature within the album. Like it's a whole experience that is meant to be enjoyed on its own, but each track stands out in a really unique way on their own, but yet still come together in a very coalescent kind of way. Very special album. It is an album that I am been very excited about, and I listened to a ton. And I don't think there's been an album that has impacted me this much in a very long time. It is my contender for album of the decade already. And yeah, if you haven't listened to it, listen to it. It's outstanding. Charlie XCX Brat. Listen to it. Kind of listening to her talk about her creative process is pretty interesting, especially when it comes to this album. One thing a lot of her interviewers say is how they notice that the album is kind of conversational. Like there isn't really like any beautiful poetics in the album. Sometimes she gets really creative with the lyricism, but a lot of the time she is really just being kind of blunt, like as if she was just sending this message to you over a text, and it's very candid. But I think that makes a really like hard-hitting, honest kind of album. And I think it also kind of just it feels really appropriate for the type of music she is making and the type of like environment this sort of music is meant to be played in. And it's like she is really engulfed in club culture and the lifestyle, and all of that is reflected very well in the music. And there again, like there's a lot of artistry when it comes to like the album experience. Like it's not, like I said, it's not meant to be listened to in like a random order. Like the order of songs is very meticulous. It's very well done, very well balanced. I would say there is my favorite thing. One of my favorite things about the album is, again, like I said, the cyclical nature of it. The first opening track is 360. It's a very cool song. Without getting you too specific and making this part of the podcast a bit longer than it can be, there are like lyrics in this song that are also kind of flipped on their head in the closing track called 365, and kind of literally talking about the cycle within the album of like this lifestyle. 360, literally a circle. 365, it's the length of an entire year. It's almost like it's just saying this is going on all year round. There are lyrics that are reflected in each song, but like differently. And they actually give you like a different sort of context of the same thing. And I think that is incredible that she has captured that in a song. And yeah, it's just one of those aspects I think makes this album very incredible, very strong, and I gotta recommend it. And again, like I said, one thing Charlie XCX has discussed in interviews is her very candid lyric delivery. Just being very honest and being like, I just don't know, I feel really insecure around this girl, and stuff like that. Just straight up telling you that, like as if she's talking to her friend. And when I heard about that and kind of observed that after she pointed it out, I was like, wow, okay, I don't really need to get super try hard with how I'm writing lyrics. You know, I could just be kind of blunt and just say it how I feel it, you know. And that has helped me a lot in just pushing out lyrics personally, and also a bit of this podcast. I am just sort of pushing out stuff, just saying it how I feel it in the moment. I'm not trying to think too hard about how I'm going to say it. I just want to say it. And yeah. So thank you, Charlie, for that insight. And when it comes to just saying it, I'm trying to figure out I'm still trying to figure out what I'm trying to say with this YouTube channel. I just barely locked in with this YouTube channel earlier this year. And because of that, I hit the threshold of 1,000 subscribers. Really cool. Thank you for those who are listening, who are watching on the channel. Super appreciate y'all. And I am still making plans to just continue to grow from here and continue to grow and build an identity with the channel, become a bit more of a recognized name on the internet. I have quite a few ideas of what I want to do. Like I hate being called a variety channel. I think that just takes away so much of the uniqueness of people who do a lot of stuff. Like if you're a variety streamer, variety channel, or whatever, like what do you literally do then? Like, oh, there's a variety streamer. Like they could play music, they could draw, they could make music. I already said make music. They could do comedy, do like literal bits and stuff. And different kinds of games, because they love games. I hate it. Stream culture is so weird to me. But yes, I do want to be a variety channel. I do want to cover multiple games and probably have like multiple different kinds of shows on here. Like this podcast is pretty different than what I usually do. And I want to, what's the word? I don't know if I'm thinking of like a specific word, but what do I want to say? I don't know. I looked at the time and I was like, I'm kind of cutting it close here. But yeah, still building an identity with the channel. Want to cover a lot of ground, and I just need to, again, pull through it. Just go for it. Just say it and all that. I want to do reviews, playthroughs, lots of stuff. Maybe have like a show where I look at a game in a certain perspective. I don't know, but I got to do it. It's my calling, I guess. But yeah, I guess that's going to be this episode. Really appreciate you listening. If you're listening on Spotify, rate 5 stars, helps out a ton. If you're listening on YouTube, like the video, comment down below how you're doing today. I want to know. And appreciate you for listening, watching, whatever you are doing. Helps out a ton and means the world to me. Hoping to actually put out these episodes of the podcast a bit more regularly. At least once a week on Thursday is when the audio version will come up. And then I think Saturday is when the video version will come up. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. All right. Thank you again and take care.